It's midnight and you're watching Nightline. I'm Raymond Goh. The headlines. Companies to be prosecuted for graft from June 1st. And no more interstate travel allowed during the conditional MCO. We begin with this story. Two of the three suspects detained in connection with the death of a 6-year-old foreign girl in front of a shopping mall in Ampang, Kuala Lumpur, will be charged on Friday. Ampang Jaya District Police Chief ACP Nur Azmi Yusof said the two suspects will be charged at the Ampang court at 10 a.m. On May 11th, the body of the fully clothed girl was found lying on the ground in front of a restaurant of a shopping mall in Ampang. An inspection conducted found bruises on several parts of her body, including on her arms. In a statement on Thursday, ACP Nur Azmi said a 17-year-old male suspect will be charged under Section 302 of the Penal Code for murder, while the 23-year-old female suspect will be charged under the Child Act 2001 for negligence. The third suspect, a 63-year-old woman, has been released to become a prosecution witness. The victim was believed to have been hit by her stepfather with a blunt object because she refused to eat. It will soon become an offense for a commercial organization if any of its employees or allies are found to be involved in corrupt practices for the benefit of the organization. This after the government decided to go ahead to enforce the corporate liability law come June 1st. On May 4, 2018, the government gazetted Section 17A of the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act. However, there have been calls for the enforcement of the new provision to be postponed for a year in view of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has caused business interruptions to many companies. MICG Chief Commissioner Dato Sri Azam Baki said the government was studying feedback that urged the provision to be delayed, as companies were not ready for the appropriate anti-corruption plan. And on Thursday, through a statement, the Prime Minister's office said that after assessing the current situation and taking into consideration various views, the government has decided to go ahead with implementing the provision. The provision states that it is an offence for a commercial organization if any of its employees or allies are involved in corrupt practices that are carried out for the benefit of the organization. The provision will encourage commercial organizations to take the necessary and suitable measures to ensure that the business that they carry out does not involve any corrupt activities. The Malaysian Institute of Corporate Governance, MICG, lauded the move to enforce the corporate liability law as it could boost Malaysia's international standing in terms of corporate governance.
I am delighted that the corporate liability provisions in Section 17A of the MACC Act will be implemented on 1st June 2020 as scheduled. This decision by our Prime Minister is a strong statement on the importance of good governance, especially during these times of extreme financial and social stress. Malaysia will benefit greatly if we are able to demonstrate our commitment to the highest international standards for business ethics and integrity. So this decision sends the right signals to everyone that the corporate liability provisions in Section 17A.
Meanwhile, the minority shareholders watchdog group MSWG said the implementation should come as no surprise to corporations as enough advance notice was given.
Well, most of the corporate sector, the companies should have been prepared because the law came into force more than 2 years ago, and advance notice was given to all corporations to get ready by 1st June 2020. I sincerely hope that many corporations were prepared. There may have been just a handful who thought it may have been postponed or it will be postponed. But unfortunately, the government has decided that it's going to come into effect on 1st June 2020 as it was intended. Corporations were supposed to have put in place adequate procedures to mitigate the risk of corruption under Section 17A. So every corporation should have a corruption policy and also adequate procedures put into place to prevent corrupt practices and giving of bribes under Section 17A. There's a saying that by and by you come to the house of never. We should not be postponing things, hoping for the right time or the right day, because the right time and right day sometimes will never come. So it was told much earlier that come 1st June 2020, this will take into effect, and I'm extremely happy and glad that this is actually crystallized, materialized.
All interstate travel is banned. The National Security Council said the move is to show how serious the authorities are in curbing the spread of COVID-19 through interstate travel. And what prompted the authorities to impose this ban? Senior Minister for Security Defence Cluster, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, explains.
Di Kuantan, 1,300 orang beratur di Balai Polis di IPD Kuantan, di Balai Polis Daerah Kuantan, untuk memohon kebenaran pulang ke kampung, iaitu untuk merentas negeri. Oleh itu saya ingin tegaskan, Mesyuarat Khas MKN hari ini telah memutuskan bahawa pergerakan merentas negeri tidak dibenarkan sama sekali. Jadi tak payahlah selepas ini nak beratur panjang-panjang untuk mendapatkan kebenaran daripada polis untuk merentas negeri. Jadi tak perlu lagi lah. Kerana polis tidak akan benarkan lagi, kerana kita tidak membuka lagi ruang untuk rentas negeri ini. No more.
The minister noted that for those whose travel permits approved before this ban being revoked, it is not an issue, as the approval was given due to the nature of each emergency case. On another note, the NSC has given the nod to 174 non-Muslim places of worship in green zones to reopen on selected days starting June 10th. The decision was made after a meeting with the heads of organizations representing various religious groups. The SOP includes only allowing up to 30 worshippers at a time, but that would also depend on the size of the premises. The decision is subject to stringent standard operating procedures, SOP.
Kebenaran ini hanya berdasarkan hari-hari yang penting, hari-hari yang utama bagi agama masing-masing. Sebagai contoh, agama Kristian, hari Ahad, mereka ke gereja hari Ahad, maka hari Ahad saja yang dibenarkan. Ada gereja agama Hindu mungkin ada hari tertentu, agama Buddha mungkin ada hari tertentu, satu hari dalam seminggu yang mereka perlu pergi. Jadi kita hanya benarkan satu atau dua hari saja di dalam seminggu.
Out of the 174 places of worship, 84 are Hindu temples, 67 are churches, 15 are Buddhist temples, and 8 are gurdwaras. Meanwhile, the decision on whether Malaysians are allowed to perform the Hajj this year will be announced after Hari Raya Aidilfitri. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Datuk Sri Dr. Zulkifli Muhammad Al-Bakri, said Malaysia was still waiting for the official announcement from Saudi Arabia's Ministry of Hajj and Umrah before making a decision on the matter. Following the COVID-19 pandemic, Saudi Arabia has decided to stop all international flights and block entry and exit movements to several cities, including Mecca and Medina. A new COVID-19 cluster has been detected at the Bukit Jalil Immigration Detention Depot. So far, 35 have tested positive, while another 210 are still awaiting their results. Of the 35, 17 are from Myanmar, 15 from India, and 1 each from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Egypt. The cluster was detected after those who had been sent back to their home countries were tested positive.
Jadi apa yang kita laksanakan ialah kita saring semua di Blok A, iaitu melibatkan mereka yang telah ditahan, dan keputusannya ialah 34 kes adalah positif, dan semalam ada 1 kes positif menjadikan keseluruhan dia 35 kes adalah positif.
The government is now carrying out contact tracing and the source of infection. Dr. Noor Hisham also said the Health Ministry is providing various healthcare services, such as maternity care for those detained at the depot for free. Dr. Noor Hisham also revealed that 15 homes for the elderly also had positive cases.
Seterusnya dimaklumkan, saringan dijalankan di 182 pusat jagaan warga emas sehingga 21 Mei 2020. Dan jumlah penghuni dan kaki tangan yang telah dikenal pasti ialah 7,498. Jumlah sampel yang telah diambil dan diuji adalah 6,702, iaitu bersamaan dengan 89.4%. Dan didapati 18 kes adalah positif, iaitu bersama dengan 0.3%. 15 buah pusat jagaan warga emas disahkan ada kes positif COVID-19, iaitu bersama dengan 8.2%.
No new deaths were reported, but 50 new COVID-19 cases were also reported Thursday. The new cases include the 34 at the Immigration Depot Centre, 2 cases from the Kajang Market cluster, and 1 each from the Pesantren Sendayan cluster and the Chaukit Market cluster. There were also 3 imported cases. Media Prima television networks continues to be Malaysia's most watched broadcast channels. Its total audience share stands at 36%, while its primetime audience share for the first quarter of this year at 49%. Primeworks Studios also recorded a 13% increase in revenue, and that's mainly due to a successful film release and higher advertiser content revenue. Its group digital revenue also improved by 9% to 18.9 million ringgit on the back of a 12% digital advertising growth. Media Prima continues to remain the most popular choice for mobile content in Malaysia. It has the nation's 3rd highest digital audience reach, behind Google and Facebook. The media group also narrowed its net loss after tax to 30 million ringgit compared to 42.8 million ringgit last year. Media Prima Berhad recorded a revenue of 238.4 million ringgit for the same period. Its Group Managing Director, Dato' Iskandar Mizal Mahmud, said the performance demonstrates that Media Prima is heading in the right direction to become a resilient company. Not only did he kick her, but also showed a lewd gesture. The story when we return. Stay tuned on Nightline. Palm oil prices in the market are expected to strengthen following India's move to resume importing Malaysian palm oil. Plantation Industries and Commodities Minister Dr. Muhammad Khairuddin Aman Razali said the Indian government's move to discontinue its import sanction on refined palm oil and the Malaysian government's willingness to close the trade gap helped to boost palm oil imports by the country. Another factor which contributed to the increase in imports is the crude palm oil's market price, which has fallen below the threshold for Malaysia's export duties. Diplomatic relations between both countries have also improved, with contracts for palm oil purchases for June and July 2020. Yesterday, palm oil trading in the local stock exchange surged 47% to 66,427 lots. The nation's oil palm industry provides incomes for close to 500,000 smallholders, including around 258,000 independent smallholders.
Keluh kesah rakyat berhubung isu elektrik ketika negara berdepan COVID-19. Saya akan merungkai segala persoalan anda.
bersama Menteri Tenaga dan Sumber Asli Datuk Samsul Anwar Nasarah dan saya Azwaliza Azman hanya di Eksklusif TV3.
On to the Datuk Sri Najib Razak's One Malaysia Development Berhad, 1MDB trial now. The Kuala Lumpur High Court was today told that Petro Saudi International Limited, PSI, was called a pain in the A or PITA project by the 1MDB management. Its former chief executive, Datuk Shahrul Azral Ibrahim Halmi, said this was because it needed to be managed carefully, where Datuk Sri Najib, who was then Prime Minister, had to be consulted. Datuk Shahrul, who is also the 9th prosecution witness, however, added that nobody in the 1MDB board of directors knew what PITA was all about, as it was an internal joke among the 1MDB management. During cross-examination by Datuk Sri Najib's counsel, Tan Sri Muhammad Shafi Abdullah, the witness also agreed to a suggestion that there was no paperwork or presentation made about the PITA project to the BOD. The former Prime Minister faces 4 charges of abusing his position to obtain gratification totaling 2.3 billion ringgit in 1MDB funds and 21 counts of money laundering. The trial before Justice Colin Lawrence Sakira continues on June 4th. In Selangor, a man in a video footage which went viral on social media showing him making an obscene gesture and kicking a female food panda rider was charged in the Petaling Jaya Magistrates Court today. 61-year-old He King, however, pleaded not guilty after both charges were read to him before Magistrate Muhammad Ikhwan Muhammad Nasir. In the Monday incident caught on CCTV, the food delivery rider was kicked repeatedly, purportedly over a misunderstanding with the accused. The incident sparked outrage among netizens, calling for stern action against the assailant. And on Thursday, at the Petaling Jaya Magistrates Court, the pensioner was charged with allegedly causing hurt to 26-year-old Shazlin Shazmi at Bandar Puteri Puchong on May 18th. The charge under the Penal Code carries a maximum 1-year jail term or a 2,000 ringgit fine or both upon conviction. He was charged also with outraging the modesty of the woman by showing her a lewd gesture at the same place and time. He faces a jail term of up to 5 years or a fine of both if found guilty. The court set bail at 4,000 ringgit for both charges. The magistrate fixed June 16th for mention. Japan newborn gets liver stem cells in world first. Stay tuned. On to the foreign front. The death toll due to the devastation caused by Cyclone Amphan across India's coastal communities and neighboring Bangladesh rose to more than 80 people on Thursday. Authorities are now racing to provide relief efforts to communities already stricken by the coronavirus, hampered in many areas by heavy rains and fallen debris. According to local authorities, at least 72 people were killed in West Bengal state, India alone, and 2 more deaths were reported in neighboring Odisha. Most of the deaths in India were blamed on trees falling on people or wind and water collapsing homes. Bangladesh, meanwhile, reported 10 deaths and 1 million people were left without power as electricity poles were toppled in south and southwestern parts of the country. Weakening into a deep depression, the cyclone has now moved north-northeastwards, and it is very likely to further weaken into a depression later on Thursday. Doctors in Japan have successfully conducted the world's first transplant of liver cells made from embryonic stem cells into a newborn with a serious liver condition. According to the National Center for Child Health and Development in Tokyo, the baby that received the transplant had hyperammonemia, a condition which an abnormality in the natural urea cycle prevents toxic ammonia from being broken down in the liver. The cellular transplant was conducted as a bridge treatment to improve liver function until the baby became old enough to receive a new liver. Following the treatment, the blood ammonia level dropped to normal, and the baby left the hospital 9 weeks later. It was understood that the institute also plans to carry out about 3 more cell transplants before the end of the current fiscal year and establish the procedure as a viable treatment. In other news, Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Thursday lifted the state of emergency in the western prefectures of Osaka, Kyoto and Hyogo, following a drop in the number of infections. It is understood that the 3 prefectures met the criteria needed for the state of emergency to be lifted, having less than 0.5 active cases per 100,000 people. However, according to Abe, Tokyo and Hokkaido in northern Japan will remain under the state of emergency, but it may be lifted as early as Monday after a review by health experts, a sign that the world's 3rd largest economy may soon start recovering from recession. Meanwhile, neighboring country Singapore has confirmed 448 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the total number of cases to 29,812. According to the Health Ministry, 13 of the cases are Singaporeans or permanent residents, while the vast majority of the new cases were work permit holders residing in foreign worker dormitories. It is also learnt that 7 of the 13 cases were picked up from active surveillance and screening of nursing home residents and preschool staff. Indonesia announced 973 new confirmed cases on Thursday, with 502 of the cases located in East Java, which has emerged as the new epicenter of the outbreak in the country. Health Ministry official Ahmad Yuryanto said the total death toll meanwhile had increased by 36 to 1,278. Yuryanto added that 502 new cases in East Java is the highest daily spike recorded by a province in Indonesia, even surpassing that of Jakarta. IOC mulls cancelling 2020 Tokyo Olympics. The details when we come back. Now let's take a look at the highlights in Malaysia's main newspapers for Friday, May 22nd. The New Straits Times, Harian Metro and Berita Harian highlight the government's decision to ban interstate travel with immediate effect after thousands were caught trying to sneak across borders in the past few days. While a report on Maybank's concern of uncertain futures due to the coronavirus despite an increase in its earnings gets the front page of the Malaysian Reserve. Do get your copies today or subscribe to the e-paper. And that's it for Nightline this time around. As we wrap, we leave you with soothing aerial footage of Sai Kung Country Park, one of Hong Kong's most famous and scenic parks, which is of course home to volcanic landscapes, country trails, beaches and mountain peaks. I'm Raymond Goh. Thank you for tuning in, and to all our Muslim viewers, Selamat Bersahur.